Hey guys, welcome back to First and 10 over here on Clueless Gamers. I'm your host, Pete, joined as always in a second by my co-host, Brian. Guys, we're back. First and 10 here, wrapping up week number 4. And then, of course, we'll give our picks week number 5. And we'll unfortunately talk about the Thursday night game that already happened in week 5 of Rams 49ers. There's going to be a lot to talk about. There's going to be some emotions, especially from my end, running high. But before we get to all that, Brian, welcome you in, man. How are you? What's going on? Excited that you're here.
Yeah, I understand emotions running high for you after that Thursday night or a very disappointing result for your Rams that we got to
Yep.
get into. Is it just seems like the 49ers are one of those teams that has their number. You have to call it like you see it. I mean, they did get the one big win against them in the playoffs, but there's been a lot of regular season games lately that have gone to Kyle Shanahan and his 49ers. So that's one to get into. And the season, it's still early, but it's not going to be early for too much longer. And for a team like the Ravens, eh,
Yeah.
eek, because there's a lot going on there that we got to get into, and they got to get it turned around in a hurry.
Oh, we are absolutely going to dive into all that stuff. It's going to be a nice jam-packed, juicy show here. But, Bry, as I teased and you said, let's jump into Thursday night, week 5, the 49ers visiting the Rams, and a home game for the Rams, but let's be honest, like it always is, the 49ers pack that stadium. I love every year that everyone has selective memory where people are like, I can't believe how many red jerseys were in the stands. Guys, this literally happens every single year that the 49ers go to SoFi Stadium. Like, everyone has amnesia, and they just forget that every single season. Like, you're in relative driving distance between both teams. The 49ers have been in California forever. The Rams are just trying to establish being back in LA, in California since 2016. It's just naturally how it's going to go. And 49er fans, there's a lot of them. They travel well. They call it, Levi South, which, I think is ridiculous, but they always say that. So that's off the top. It's not shocking. The Rams, classically, they had to do it in that NFC Championship game that you referenced, where they had to go to silent count during this game in their own stadium. It's always hard to watch sometimes when, being a Rams fan, you really do not have home field advantage at most games. It's certainly gotten better as the years have gone on. Like, you could definitely see that we have acquired more and more fans. I mean, go back to those 2016, even 2017 first year of Sean McVay. There was no Ram fans in the stands. It was desolate. So you are seeing that growth happen. It's going to take time, but that definitely affected them on Thursday night, Bri. And to go down 26-23 in overtime, before I spend time ranting on it, I'd like to hear your thoughts about how you saw the game play out. The Rams go down, I guess, in a shocking fashion. If you're a bettor, they were 8.5-point favorites coming in. And, it just looks like the Niners, for the most part, have the Rams number no matter who's playing out there. I mean, how'd you see it go down?
Yeah, I thought that line was a little too high.
Yeah,
I took the 49ers with the points in my
100%.
spread pool that I'm involved in. And, divisional game, and, the Niners have had the upper hand a lot in this matchup. But, I mean, all the signs going in seem to favor the Rams when you look at how much healthier they were compared to the
Yeah.
49ers, who are playing Mac Jones at quarterback, and you got to give him credit. I mean, he really
He was
played
great.
a terrific game as the backup. I mean, so much so that I don't know that you consider it a quarterback controversy yet in San Francisco, but there's
We'll
at
talk
least
about that.
questions like
Uh,
even when Brock Purdy is ready and available to return to the lineup, does he automatically assume the starting job again? And maybe there's some pause from Kyle Shanahan because of how well Mac Jones has delivered and the
mhm.
team has been winning. But even with all the injuries, on defense, missing Nick Bosa and others, and offensively, not just the quarterback, but, no George Kittle, the receiving group is all sorts of battered and beaten up. And they really did a great job. I mean, early on to take a 14-0 lead. That's really, I think, where this game is won and lost.
They were
You're down
bullying them.
14-0 in
Oh
your
my
own
god.
building, and the Rams, you give them credit for coming back into the game and forcing overtime, but I felt like they they took too long to get into the game. Like Devontae Adams ends up with a pretty decent stat line, but almost all of it was the second half,
Yeah.
right? He didn't do much
Yeah.
at all in the first half. Puka, decent game, but no real big plays down the field. I think all things considered, the Niners did a decent job on him. So, and again, like the Rams, as you know, you pointed out, the self-inflicted wounds that seem to bite this team. The fumbles. There's the player they pitch it to, Kyron Williams, and he had a great game with 2 touchdowns, running the ball and receiving, but he also had a critical fumble when they toss it to him and he just drops it, and that's a turnover. The kicking game has been an issue for your team, so it's those kind of little things that are adding up, that are the difference between a win and a loss, and I think that's what kind of bit them again in this particular game on Thursday.
Yeah, I have a lot to say, so if you'll give me giving the mic here for a little bit, and if the audience will as well. The first thing I'll say off the top is we need to have a serious conversation about McVay is a good coach. He's maybe even a great coach. I don't think that's a question, a debatable thing at this point in time. But he's also an overrated coach. I mean, it's just the truth. I'm saying that as a Ram fan, it's just facts. We talk about beating good coaches to great coaches in your own conference, right? He's now 7-11, including playoffs against Kyle Shanahan. Yes, you won that 2021 NFC Championship. Of course, at the end of it, you win a championship. That's what matters. But so many times in the regular season has been dominated. And you thought last year they sweep them. They beat the Niners in both games. Both games are kind of heart-pounding. One is a come-from-behind win in the fourth quarter. One's an ugly 12-6 game. I think it was Thursday night or Monday night, something like that. You think, first time since 1999 they have a chance of winning 3 in a row against San Francisco. This team is the walking wounded. You listed out all these guys they had out. Didn't matter, right? You look at Nick Sirianni. He's against him. I think he is like against the Eagles since he's taken over. He's 1-6 now against the Eagles, and Sirianni it's like 1-4 or something like that. 1-5 since Sirianni has taken over. And then against Matt LaFleur, the Green Bay Packers, I think he's another like 1-4, 1-5, including losing in the divisional round of the playoffs in 2020. So your counterparts that are good to great coaches in your own conference, he's not only not consistently beating them, he's thoroughly getting dominated for the most part, which includes plays. That's a huge issue. McVay has a lot of time management problems. You see this all the time, and it didn't play out as much in this game. But for the most part, you go back in McVay's coaching career, since he's taken over as head coach, he calls timeouts way too soon in halves, way too frequently, has very questionable challenges. Like, there are a lot of things about the management of the game that he struggles with. And then in these big moments, particularly against these high leverage, high profile coaches, he gets tight. It's just the truth. And you had a few short down yardage against the Eagles. They run similar plays. You have a weak offensive line, particularly a weak, injured interior offensive line. You know what we'll do? Let's run it up the middle with our 5'9" running back who typically fumbles. What are we doing? Then doesn't learn anything from that 2 weeks ago and does the same thing in this game, including on that 4th and 1 in overtime that ultimately ends up. Everyone in America, particularly Rams fans, if you watch this team week in and week out, we all from our couch knew that ball was going to be a basic HB dive right up the middle and it was going to get stuffed. We all knew it was coming. Like, that's what McVay does. This creativeness that he gets all the time, it's non-existent. It's just the truth. He is not one of the most innovative offensive coaches in this league. He's a great coach. He's just not going to blow your mind and have these creative in-your-bag plays. He gets tight in these moments. And that is something that we have to seriously talk about as Ram fans and as NFL football fans. In regards to the Rams this year in 2025, they are what they always have been. This team is probably going to make the playoffs. This team is going to go 9-8, 10-7. But you know what? For the talent that they have, that's not good enough. It's not good enough. And you look at when McVay came onto the job, 2017, 2018, blowing the competition away. 1 seed, 2 seed. He was dominating the NFC Conference. Every year now, the Rams are below 500 halfway to a 3-quarter mark of the season. They make a late run. They get to the wild card of the divisional round, and they lose. Whether it's, and they've been heartbreakers, right? The 1-point loss a couple years ago to Detroit, the game that ends 13 yards from the end zone in the snow last year against Philly. That's what they do. They are not this upper echelon team that they should be, given the coaching and the talent in the front office that they have. That's a fact. That is something that has to be continually talked about. And this team, every year by the media that does not watch this team, if you don't cover the Rams regularly or you're not a fan like me who's obsessed with it, they are massively overrated every season. They are a good team. They are not a great team, and they are certainly nowhere near an excellent team. They are not. They don't possess winning DNA to dominate and run the table. Go 12-5, 13-4, 14-3. They don't have those capabilities. They haven't had them in 6 to 7 years. And to me, that is a waste of this MVP-like season through 5 games we're seeing out of Matthew Stafford. They're wasting this man's career. This is a win now situation. He's 37. You don't know if he's coming back next year. This is win right now. You put your chips in the table, and you can't at home, regardless of the fans that were there, you were still at home. You still have the routine of sleeping in your own bed, practicing in your own stadium, in your own practice facility, and you're playing the walking wounded in the San Francisco 49ers, who are down Kittle, Jawan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, their starting quarterback, Brock Purdy. Their defense in the game, left and right, dropping like flies, especially in the secondary. Nick Bosa out for the year. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. They go in there and they not only win, they cause the Rams to make the mistakes they make in these moments, and then they thoroughly punch them in the mouth, and especially in that first half, dominate them. No shot at Mac Jones. If he has a career resurgence and gets on with another team next year, all power to him. That's amazing. That guy should not be throwing for almost 350 yards coming in your building. And we talked about this. If Ram fans, they had 2 weaknesses going into the offseason last year. Interior offensive line, defensive backfield, particularly at the corner spot. And the Rams addressed neither position in the offseason. Were they bringing Trey Brown off the street for this game this week? Who cares? That is not a winning football player that is actually going to be able to come on. The guy's a 3, if not a 4 or 5th corner at best. And we're relying on him and the Kobe Durant. I mean, look at even Darion Kendrick, who I have eviscerated on the show in the past because he had very poor performances in his years with the Rams. This year was having a very good training camp. Looked like maybe he was a different player coming off the torn ACL. They cut him. They keep some of these other guys like Emmanuel Forbes that look lost out there. And what is Darion Kendrick doing in division rival Seattle? He's one of the best corners that they are having over there right now, having a great start to his season. That is the frustrating thing. It's the frustrating things, Bri, to see the Rams use their top pick this year in Terrence Ferguson, and he just saw the field in this game. And he was targeted a couple times, had a couple good catches, including that one on 3rd down. Tutu Atwell, use him here and there. You spent a 2nd-round pick on him, a few years ago. This team had chances to get guys like Creed Humphrey that plays for the Chiefs. You don't think he would have helped at center right now? That is the frustrating thing. That is the thing where this team just does not feel like it is plugging holes and doing its due diligence. Why did we not take a swing? I know he's hurt right now, but he's looked good when he's played. On Will Johnson in the 2nd round. Why did we not he went to Arizona, another division rival. Instead, we draft a 4th-string tight end at this point, where you have Higbee on most days, then Parkinson, because McVay's in love with Colby Parkinson, and then Davis Allen, and then it's Terrence Ferguson. Those are the things that are aggravating with this team, and that is some of the reasons that need to be talked about of why we lost this football
game. Well, yeah, that was a lot there. I agree, with generally your sentiment that the overarching principle I come away with is the team's talent should be Super Bowl caliber, and the way they play is not quite up to those standards, and for you, probably far off from those standards.
Yeah.
And I understand your frustration because it feels like they should be better. And you look at last year, the playoffs, they had the best chance to beat Philly by far of anyone. And I mean, probably should have won the game. Whereas you get to the NFC title game, they wiped the floor with Washington, and they wiped the floor with Kansas City in the Super Bowl, and the Rams gave them a heck of a run for their money in that divisional round. Were within a whisker of winning that game, but clearly there are deficiencies with this team, even though they have high-end players. I mean, we've talked about Puka Nacua, not just wide receiver. He's one of the best football players in the NFL. I don't think there's any
Yeah,
question. I mean,
for sure.
what has the record now for receptions through the
Through
first
five.
5 games of a season.
Yeah.
Not to mention like the dirty work he does with
He's a great
blocking.
blocker.
I mean, he's just a
Great
do-it-all. Great blocker. They could also hand him the ball out of the backfield. He can make it happen. He's great with the ball in his hands. I mean, he's just a phenomenal football player. But it seems to me the more pressing issues with the team right now are on the defensive side because offense, they can score with anybody. Defense, though, just isn't stopping people right now.
Yeah, and they've talked about all this young defense, Yeah, the pass rush and that front is great. And they've invested a lot of capital in there, and a lot of those guys have hit. But you know what those guys can't do? The Rams came into this game leading the NFL in sacks. They had 1 sack in overtime on Thursday night. You know how those guys can't rush? Everyone wants to go, oh, what a bad game Jared Verse and Kobe Turner and the guys had. How are they supposed to rush the passer when Mac Jones is getting the ball out in about 2.5 seconds? The dink and dunk offense, for the most part, was inconceivable. And you know what? Defensive coordinator Chris Shula deserves a lot of heat and a lot of the blame for his horrific game plan on Thursday night. He's gotten a lot of buzz to start the season. He doesn't deserve it. The amount of times that they play 8 to 12 yards off coverage and just give free releases to wide receivers, running backs, and tight ends is despicable. It's downright criminal. I mean, it is the fact that there cannot be adjustments against a game where you see you are having a death by 1,000 cuts over and over and over in this zone style defense, playing so off coverage. That's a problem. And not being able to make adjustments. I don't care if they played a little better in the second half. They were fortunate on some things. It was a drop ball on third down that Kendrick Bourne had when the Niners were driving. They ended up having to punt. You're letting Kendrick Bourne rip you up and Mac Jones rip you up in this game, and you consistently make no changes. Press these guys at the line. There's no Tyreek Hill up there. There's no Justin Jefferson or a Jamar Chase. Who is beating you over the top and getting an 80-yard bomb against you? Get up in these guys' faces, press them at the line of scrimmage, and do something. Give your pass rush time to get home on a hobbled, knee brace wearing, stumbling all over the place Mac Jones. The guy, I'll give him all the credit in the world. He had so much grit on Thursday night. He's dry heaving, getting beaten the crap out of, and he kept coming out there. But when you see that, there's blood in the water. You have to rush him. You have to speed up his process, and just the inability to make changes. Chris Shula deserves a lot of heat, and that was a disservice of what he did on Thursday night. And then on the other side, the special teams coach Blackburn, he should not have a job at this point. I hate calling for people's jobs, but our special teams unit, the Rams special teams unit through 5 weeks, is the worst special team unit in the league. I have no problem saying that. You know how many block kicks, including extra points and field goals, we have this year, Bri, through 5 games?
5.
5 kicks already have been blocked. Not to mention in the fourth quarter,
I guess
Cardi's getting all this credit for all of these dirty balls that he's kicking that are hard to field. Even if they were hard to field, it didn't result in fumbles or guys for the 49ers being that far back. But you know what it did result in? Him kicking it short of the landing zone in overtime and giving the Niners the ball at the 40 freaking yard line. That's what it did. And he is downright, not only they have not blocked for him, and they are getting blown up in blocking right up the middle at the center and the long snapper. That's a problem. The extra point that got blocked on Thursday night ended up being huge in this game. But also, he missed a 53-yard field goal. They got Eddie Pinheiro. They pulled off the street, hitting 59-yarders, drilling them, drilling 41-yard kicks in overtime off the goalpost, and of course it bounces in because no one ever misses kicks against the Rams. But at home, we can't miss a 53-yarder. There has to be heat behind Cardi and behind this special teams, the long snapper, and the special teams. They have been horrible to start the season, and you can argue that that unit alone out of the 3 has cost the Rams both of their losses this season.
You're longing for the days of Greg the Leg, I see.
Hell, I'll take Jeff Wilkins at this point. Can we bring him back? Can we do something?
Josh Brown.
Oh my God, please. It seemed like Hardy had turned a corner, and all of these are not his fault. I have never seen more block kicks in the NFL overall this year, but especially I've never seen it on my own team. I've never seen an interior of a special teams field goal blocking unit have that many penetration points up the middle of the line. I've never seen anything like that. To me, heads have to roll. Significant changes have to be made in these 10 days before Baltimore. That unit has to change. And Les Snead on the other side of it needs to get on the phone. They have to go get a defensive back. They have to get a corner. They cannot keep maybe the worst, if not a top 3 worst corners room in the league. They cannot survive and make the playoffs having these guys out there. They have to call someone, see if the Browns have no interest in Ward anymore or Newsome or somebody. Call someone, get someone off a crappy team, try to see if you can fleece someone instead of us giving up 2 first-round picks like we always do, and go get someone. They need that. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, he made Kendrick Bourne look like I don't even know
Randy
who.
Moss.
I mean, what do you have?
Terrell Owens back in his Niners day. That's what he was looking like. Oh my God.
Well, this was a nice therapy session for you. You got a lot off your chest.
I have a little bit more, if you'll allow me. I want to say one final point. Is I want to give the Niners all the credit in the world. Kyle Shanahan's an excellent coach. You know, I understand he's had his rough moments in the playoffs. I get that. But he's an excellent coach. To do what he did with this injury-ridden squad, McVay couldn't have done that. We know that. We saw it in 2022. So the fact that he is this team at 4-1 and right now standing atop the NFC West, they deserve all the credit in the world. Mac Jones, Bourne, solid with that defense. Fred Warner, all those guys deserve all the credit. I'm just a Rams fan, so that's why I'm putting more of my frustration into that side of it. It's not like I'm trying to neglect the 49ers here. But the final point I want to make before we move on, because I've needed this therapy session, something also has to be talked about with Kyren Williams. In my fantasy league, and Brian can confirm this because we're in the same league, you can write in Sleeper, the app we're using, you could write little nicknames. And I drafted him in August. And do you remember the exact nickname that I gave Kyren Williams?
You'll have to remind me.
And Brian and I are playing each other this week. In that league, in August, I put, please hold on to the ball. That's literally the nickname I gave to him. And yet, we come into this season on Sunday against the Colts, which we're not going to talk about that game. He fumbled in that game, was almost a huge turning point to causing us to lose that game, and we had the come-from-behind win. And then, of course, he has the fumble at the 1-yard line. And I'm watching it, Brian. I came home from work late, and I'm watching the Rams drive down. And I said it to myself out loud, just me, whole house, the rest of the house is sleeping. I said, Kyron's going to fumble the ball right here. I knew it was coming because in these big moments, that is what Kyren Williams does. I love him as a player. He's talented, but he's got butterfingers. He, especially in clutch moments, he's got a serious problem. And I know he grew up a Rams fan. It means so much to him. I understand that. I don't question his passion for the game. But I question his ability to simply do his job to hold on to the ball. And I know the people are going to say, oh, well, Pete, there was some complaining on Rams Twitter. He got punched in the head. That should have been a penalty, blah, blah, blah. That was incidental contact. Things like that happen all the time in those scrums, especially at the goal line. They are never going to call a penalty for that. In fact, I don't know if even the letter of the law in incidental contact that can even be called a penalty. I'm not saying that affected him. It definitely did. But you know what also affected him? When he was making a little jump cut on his first jump cut through the hole, he lost kind of his balance a little bit, and he was leaning more on one leg than the other, so he couldn't put 2 hands over the ball. If you go back and watch it, I've watched it many times. The whole time when they're down there, he's got 2 hands like this, and I'm proud of him. I'm like, all right, there you go, 2 hands, 2 hands. On that play, when he has to make the cut and he goes off balance, he uses, as any human being would, his other arm to kind of steady himself, try to give himself balance. When he does that, he goes to one hand. When he's holding with one hand, he also gets hit in the face, and the ball comes right out, clean fumble. I don't see how that's going to improve, Bri, because earlier in the game, you had Blake Corum, who they have high hopes for, trying to make a dual threat this year, and he fumbles it on a pitch play. So you had both of your running backs turn the ball over. Now, I don't know why. The last I checked the official statistics box, Matt Stafford got credited with the fumble, which I thought was ridiculous because he threw it right to Blake Corum and hit him right in both hands. How is that not a fumble on him?
Yeah.
I'm hoping they change that because that's asinine in my opinion. But both of your running backs fumbled during this game, and then kind of Corum went into the doghouse after that fumble. Why is he going in the doghouse, but the guy that you extended this year, is that why? Kyron's just going to get the chance he does, and you give him a chance. It almost felt like McVay gave him the chances he did in the fourth quarter, in overtime, because he was trying to redeem him. On that 4th and 1, instead of doing, as I said, what everyone knew was coming right up the middle, why was a naked or a boot action not run to the right side? You keep the ball in Matt Stafford's hands, who was fantastic in this game, and you hit a pass to Puka for 2 yards, keep the chains going. That is everyone in America. I said that before I even started seeing other people say that. I said it out loud to myself. I said, why did they not run? Why did they not run a naked or a boot action there? It makes no sense why that happened more than are you just trying to instill Kyron with some confidence after he just fumbled. Well, we're trying to win a football game. We're not trying to keep players' egos and confidence high at that point in the game. I don't disagree with going for the 4th down call. I disagree with the call that was made. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I wasn't surprised that they went for it because, if you kick the field goal there, chances are it's going to be a tie, or
you're going to lose.
You're giving the ball back to the Niners, and the way they were moving the ball, they would get it into field goal range for a game-winning field goal. So I understand wanting to go for the win there, but I also get where you're coming from. You hand it off to a 5'9" running back. It's not like you're giving it to Derrick Henry or Marshawn Lynch in his prime. It's not really his skill set to get the dirty yards like that. So, clearly it didn't work out. They didn't execute, and there were too many things late in that game, as you noted. The kickoff that didn't land in the landing zone, get the ball on the 40-yard line. That was a killer.
Yeah, all the miscommunications with Devontae Adams. You could see that they haven't played a lot together because Stafford didn't practice all training camp. How many times? There was 3 different times that they were miscommunicating on the route that he was running. And
I'd say Stafford's best throw was that ball to Tutu Atwell, where he kind of spun
out to his left and threw back across. Oh, it was incredible.
That was an incredible play. Remember, and Tutu Atwell had the game winner in the previous game against the Colts that wanted a big bomb down the field. So he made a big play. But yeah, that ball to Atwell was just, Stafford is really playing at a very high level at this advanced stage.
He's been amazing.
It's a shame that the rest of the team isn't up to snuff.
Yeah, the guy this season, I think it's 11 touchdowns, 2 picks so far this season. That fumble, I still looked, is still credited to him, which is ridiculous. But he has minimal turnovers this season. He's lighting up. He's doing what Ram fans have been wondering the last couple of years, where you have to remember Stafford in the last couple of years hasn't really thrown for 25 touchdowns. He's not been throwing for even 4,000 yards. So to see him at this point, I understand it's the first game of Week 5, leading the league in passing yards, up there in touchdowns, that's a pleasant thing to see. It's just all the more frustrating, as I said, given that this team is 3-2, and their next couple games are possibly when Lamar returns against Baltimore, and then Jacksonville with that defense, the way they're playing, leading the league in turnovers, in London, where anything could be kooky, wacky, you're all thrown off. Those are not games that I'm looking and going, I won't be surprised, Brian, we look up and this team is 3-4 headed into their bye after Jacksonville. I really won't. It's just, it's not good. But I could talk about this game all freaking night long, and thanks for everyone, including Brian, for indulging me there. But let's just jump back to Sunday and the Week 4 games. We're going to talk about a couple games, and then we'll get into some picks. And, of course, as we always do in the picks, we talk about some of the week before. But, Brian, let's talk about another team that has been incredibly frustrating this season. The Ravens head to Kansas City. They end up losing this game 37-20, and honestly, that score doesn't do justice. It was even more of a blowout. The Ravens scored a late garbage time touchdown, much the same that they did against Detroit when they lost the game before. Brian, this game, if you watched it, was from almost right after the Ravens' first drive, where they went down the field, scored a touchdown. Really after that, Kansas City dominated them. The entire rest of the game, start to finish, Lamar clearly in his head, frustrated, ends up getting hurt at the end of this game with a hamstring injury. Making egregious turnovers that you never see Lamar make unless it's in the playoffs or it is against Kansas City. He gets tight, he presses, and this Ravens defense that has been the hallmark for almost our entire lives, Bri, that we've been watching football, this might be, at this point through 4 weeks, the worst unit they have ever had in all the time we've been watching them. Kansas City, I think both of us picked against them. I think we both picked the Ravens for this one. Man, were we dead wrong. Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes, they looked in total form last Sunday.
Yeah, they really gave the Chiefs some life because the Chiefs season, I don't know that you'd say it was on life support, but there were a lot of alarm bells being sounded in Kansas City with their first two games that were both losses, and then they got off the schneid with the win against the Giants, but didn't exactly look impressive in doing so, especially in the first half of that game. But this was really the first game where they looked like kind of the vintage Chiefs, where Mahomes looked really good. Clearly, the addition of Xavier Worthy back in the lineup helped the offense tremendously. I mean, they just looked a lot more like the Chiefs that we've come to expect over the last. They've had their ups and downs on offense the last couple of years, but when you think about the Chiefs and Mahomes, you think about the offense just being able to light it up, and that's what they were able to do. But on the Ravens side, you mentioned Lamar going down. He's already been ruled out. He's not going to play in this upcoming game against Houston, which means Cooper Rush, who is the backup, will start. And look, the Ravens have a lot of issues right now. I mean, the defense is not stopping anybody. You think about 3 games this year that they've given up, 35 plus points?
Yeah.
Buffalo, Detroit, and now this game against Kansas City. The only respectable game they had was against Cleveland. They can't score against anybody and just made a quarterback change. So it's pretty dire right now for the Ravens when you're missing your all-world quarterback. Your defense is leaking oil all over the place. Derrick Henry's had fumbling issues. I mean, they just look completely out of sorts right now, and you just wonder, are they going to be able to get it turned around? It's going to have to start without Lamar Jackson in the lineup, but the game last week was really, I think, a damning one for the Ravens from top to bottom.
Yeah, it shows something that we've talked about, I think, on the prediction show, where this is a huge year for the Ravens. If the Chiefs lost this game, they drop to 1-3. Let's say the Chiefs just have an injury-prone bad season. Well, you know what? They've been to 5 of the last 6 Super Bowls. They've been to the last 3 in a row, and they've also, in this dynasty period, have won 3 Super Bowls. They had a bad year. Andy Reid's not getting fired. No one's saying Mahomes is washed. The Ravens, they haven't won anything with this group. John Harbaugh won his Super Bowl in 2012. Okay? They've not had tons and tons of playoff success since then. We know Lamar struggles. I mean, that's well documented through everything, including this channel. This is a big year for this iteration of the Ravens and this collective group together. And to me, Bri, right now, fair or not, Lamar out or not, Lamar is not going anywhere. John Harbaugh is absolutely on the hot seat. His seat is burning. And I'm telling you right now, this season goes sideways, and let's say, I still think they're going to make the playoffs, but let's say they didn't. He's done. Or if they go to the playoffs and they lose in the wild card round, he's also done. They're going to change. There's going to be a change here in Baltimore. You cannot keep going year after year and do the same things. What's the definition of insanity, right? It's doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. That is very much the Baltimore Ravens. And right now, in this game, not only no Lamar, of course, which is the biggest one, no Roquan Smith, their defensive leader on the other side, amongst all of the other injuries. I think they're down 7 or 8 of their opening day starters already going into week 5. Yeah. They're in a really rough spot right now. And it's not like Cooper Rush was out there, who's been, a serviceable backup in his time, particularly in Dallas. It's not like when he came in that game last week, he was lighting the world on fire. I think they are in major trouble in Baltimore. And on the other side of it with Kansas City, I'm giving the Chiefs their credit. They own Baltimore. Lamar only has 1 win now against them in his career. But I'm also not looking at the Chiefs and going, oh, they're all the way back. They're all good. I'm not saying that. This game, it's not fluky. They played a great game start to finish. But you look at Mahomes, throws for about 270. A lot of his, I think Worthy went for 83 yards. Besides that, he had a lot of short fields, a lot of ability to just go down the field, boom, touchdown there, boom, touchdown there. And he played great. I think Mahomes has actually played pretty well all season, while the rest of his team has kind of been subpar. But this defense, I'm still not in love with what I've seen. Charles Omenihu is not the same player that we've seen since he's been paid. Chris Jones, so far to this point in the season, feels like he's taken a little bit of a step back. He does not to be the same dominant player. I've seen that out of McDuffie. I don't think he's been the same dominant player that we've seen in the last year or two. They can still not run the ball. They have a serious problem running the ball. And I just don't know if we can throw all of our chips in. Oh, Worthy's back. Of course, clearly he adds an element to this offense that is not there when he is not there. But he's 170 pounds. He has a chance of getting hurt again. And the media is acting like Rashid Rice is going to be out there being a top 3 wide receiver in the league. He's a good player, but I'm not looking at him as, oh, this guy's Jamar Chase out here. Like, he's Justin Jefferson. He's Puka Nacua. Like, he's a solid underneath receiver who has not really game-breaking speed. He's more of a possession guy, and he'll help, but I'm not fully sold. It's a great win by the Chiefs, but I'm not saying they're all the way back. Are you saying they're all the way back, or do you still have some questions?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say they're all the way back. I think we need to see it over a period of at least a few weeks before we can really make that declaration. And, we haven't seen Mahomes play his best football really the last couple seasons, including the start of this year. So I still think they have a ways to go. And I think it comes down to two. Their kind of downturn on offense really started with when Travis Kelce's play slipped a bit. And,
sure.
We're not going to see the best version of Travis Kelce anymore. I mean, this
done.
might be his last season. He's clearly older. He doesn't move as well. But when their offense was humming, it was because of Kelce's special nature of his play. And I really think that's the biggest I think that's the biggest factor in why their offensive production has fallen off the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think it's a huge part of it. And you know what? Mahomes is in my mind, he is still the best quarterback in football right now. But I don't want to be one of these people, but I'm going to be for right now. By the end of this year, if Mahomes has a third straight kind of mediocre-ish regular season, and then this team can't go to the Super Bowl every year, and he doesn't make the Super Bowl this year, maybe they don't even make it to the AFC Championship, maybe, even though the AFC is wide open right now. We have to start talking about how, maybe Josh Allen is the best quarterback in football. Right now, I think those arguments now and in the past have been utterly ridiculous. But if you give me a third straight mediocre regular season, I think it's fair to start asking those questions and to not see that MVP like Mahomes. This is a great start in the right direction. I want to see Mahomes continue on this trajectory because when he plays great football, I think it's great for the league. I think it's a great product to watch. I don't need to see the dink and dunk 160-yard performances from Mahomes where they win 17-16. It's boring. I don't care. I don't want to see it. I'm not saying you have to give us style points per se, but I want to see you live up to the potential that I know and I've seen with my own eyes that you are capable with. And hey, great win, but we want to see definitely more out of the Chiefs and particularly this Chiefs offense. Brian, the other game, final game we're going to talk about from week 4 is a tie, which, is always a snooze fest in some ways, but this one was great. Sunday Night Football, the Packers visit the Cowboys, the big, of course, story that no one could stop freaking talking about. Micah Parsons returning to Dallas, blah, blah, blah. I think most people, I definitely said it last week, thought this was going to be a thorough beatdown by the Packers. They just came off that really bad loss against the Browns. You figured they want to get out some of their aggression. Micah get back, at the Cowboys. CeeDee Lamb not playing for the Cowboys. It seemed, and this Cowboys defense has been atrocious. They were atrocious again in this game. Seemed like all the makings, Bri, all the trimmings that the Packers were going to dominate this game by at least 3 scores. And this game ends in overtime 40-40. Do you see it, Bri, as, hey, let's give the Cowboys, in particular Dak and that offense, a lot of credit that they got the tie here? Or are you looking at now 2 weeks in a row, this Packers team, not great performances, one offensively, one defensively. Maybe they were a tad bit overrated through 2 weeks. Which way do you see this game?
Yeah, probably a little more so of the Packers side, having a little more questions about them. I mean, I want to give the Cowboys credit, especially offensively, what they've been able to do, not just in this game, but the start of the season has been very impressive that they have been a competitive team despite a defense that is the worst in the league and
Maybe
maybe the worst
maybe
we've
the worst
seen in a
I've ever
few
seen.
years.
I mean, just holy
I,
God.
It is really awful, coordinated by Matt Eberflus, who I don't know how he has a job because, I
No
mean, the
offense, but he
product
should not.
is not good. I mean, how many times do we have to watch receivers just beat their corners like easily? I mean,
By
getting
10,
wide
15
open in the
yards.
open
I
field.
mean, they had a play in this
Right, and it
game
happens.
all the time, bro. They had a play in this game where Matthew Golden and I forget, maybe it was Wicks. They both could have caught the ball together. That's how wide
Yes.
open they were.
Yep. Yep, I know what they both were in the same area, and Love just heaves it up, and you got both of them both alone in the
Oh,
secondary to
wow.
just catch the ball. Yeah, that just sums it up for the Cowboys. I mean, how many times did we see when they played the Giants, who
Yeah.
couldn't score before their quarterback switch, and Russell Wilson's just lighting the world on fire in that game. So their defense, I mean, it is really atrocious. But the Packers, this is now back-to-back games. They went against Cleveland. They only scored 10 points. And this game, as you put it, I mean, all the pieces were in place for a blowout kind of game. And the way the game started made you think it was going to be just that. I mean, the Packers were rolling early in this game, but then the Cowboys found their footing on offense, and even without CD Lamb, like George Pickens has CD Lamb like production in this game with 134 yards,
It
two
was great.
touchdowns. There were a lot of kind of wacky plays, and the game goes into overtime, and the Packers nearly blew it at the end by running a play and had 1 second on the clock
They
before
shouldn't
they
have.
kicked.
Do you agree they should not have had that 1 second? I thought that was a phony 1 second. The ball was still in the air. I think time should have expired. I thought that was a little BS on their part.
It was close. It was a close call, but yeah. I mean, and then you get into the whole issue of like the tie thing is still just weird. That now
Hate it.
when you reference a team record and you get that third column in there, it's very annoying. So yeah, I'm not really a big fan of ties, but normally when you get a tie, it's like a dull game. Like, it's 20-20 or seventeen
Yeah.
seventeen. How about a tie of
It was
40-40,
a
which I
great
think
game.
they said was the second highest score in a tie. So it was a barn burner of a game. A lot of fun to watch. But the Packers I expected better, especially on the defensive side, because we have given them a lot of credit for their defense with Micah
Mm-hmm.
Parsons and company. But this was a game that their defense really didn't show up when the Cowboys were missing a lot of key personnel. I expected better from Green Bay.
Yeah, they were pretty putrid defensively, and coming off a great defensive game against Cleveland, but a poor offensive game. I agree with you. I just think it's because we don't expect a lot out of Dallas. Hey, we give them some props, but they did just lose to the Bears, right? Like, they're not a great football team. I think Dak is having a great
No.
season, but they're
Yes,
not a great
agreed.
football team. And I'll also give Brian Schottenheimer some credit. He was much maligned in the media, even by us. He seemed like a lame duck hire. This offense has been great. So he deserves a ton of credit.
Yeah.
Maybe less so for if he had a hand in picking Matt Eberflus as a defensive coordinator, but his offense has been great. This to me is more the Packers, and I think it's just because like they dominated Detroit week one, but week ones could sometimes be weird. The Commanders right now, they've been going through a flux, but at the moment they were one of the top playoff teams. Thursday night, we thought, we'll give them some credit. These last two games, Bri, they've not looked good. They've not looked good, and it's been one side of the ball, then it's been the other side of the ball. It's been very disappointing, and I know Micah makes the play in overtime where he technically gets a sack on a 0-yard loss, and they're like, Dak could have ran it in. The way Dak's speed is after all of these surgeries, I don't think he was getting in there in overtime. But regardless, give Micah the credit there. But for the most part, he was a non-factor in this game. And I don't think he has really played himself in game shape yet. I think he is still nursing a little bit of that back injury. And right now, he has not been by far the best defensive player in the league. Certainly the one that is paid the highest in NFL history to this point, or he's right up there in those rankings. They need more out of him. They need more out of just a complete game. They're very much a roller coaster team. Love's great in this game. He's terrible in the last game. Like, I have a lot of questions with the Green Bay Packers, even though I still think they're one of the top teams in the NFC. But let me read you some of these rankings, Bri, if I can, real quick. This is the Cowboys defense under Matt Eberflus through 4 weeks of the 2025 NFL season.
It's bad.
In total defense, the Cowboys are 32nd. They give up 420.5 yards a game. They've given up 16 touchdowns. That's the most in the league, tied with the Baltimore Ravens, another defense that we just talked about is atrocious. The Cowboys' passing defense is worst in the league, 297.3 yards per game. They've given up 10 passing touchdowns. Their rush defense is 20th, so it's bad, but it's not the worst in the league, and that's mostly just because their secondary is so bad, just teams pass all over them. Scoring defense, 31st in the league. You know who's 32nd? The Baltimore Ravens. But except the Ravens have at least, for every injury they've had and everything else, they're banged up, and they've played 3 elite offenses. The Chiefs, the Lions, and the Bills. Who are the Cowboys playing? All right, they had the Packers in this game, but the Bears? The Eagles, who haven't looked great offensively? Like, who are they playing? They let the Giants and Russell Wilson, maybe his last game of his career, blow him up. They're giving up 33 points a game. Their red zone defense, it's kind of middling of the pack. Here's a telling one. Third down defense. The Cowboys are 32nd in the league. 58.2% of the time, teams convert. 58.2% of the time, opposing offenses get the third down and turn it into a first down. That is beyond pathetic. And there is serious issues where there is no way this can continue and that the Cowboys could keep getting in 40-point shootouts. It's not possible. And there is no way that even getting to the halfway point in the season, if this continues, that Matt Eberflus will have a job. I understand they're not working with a lot. There's a lot of overrated guys on this team. Diggs, Bland, both massively overpaid and overrated. But something has to change in Dallas, and this is one of the worst defenses I've seen in the last decade.
Yeah, and I mean, look, you thought it would be bad when they traded Parsons, who was really the one impact player, but I mean, you still would have thought it'd be more competitive than this. I mean, this is just non-competitive week after week, giving up big plays all over the place, making bad offenses look great. I mean, the Giants, for goodness sake, scored 40 points on them. Like, it's just, they're not going to be able to sustain a competitive play with how poorly they played on that side of the ball.
One final note I want to make, Bri, before we get into our picks on Jordan Love. What has been kind of your assessment this season of him? He's been a very up and down roller coaster type of player, and that concerns me. He lost the game against Cleveland a couple weeks ago where he throws the pick that turns the entire game on its head. And also, too, I just feel like at this point in the season and what we've seen the last few years, since Devontae Adams had left with Rodgers, they do not have a number one consistent passing option. They have a lot of solid players, a lot of B players. We talked about that. But they don't have anyone that takes over a game. And I think as they play more of these upper echelon teams, better defenses, get into the playoffs, I think that's going to come back to bite them. How have you assessed this offense, and particularly Jordan Love, through 4 games this season?
Yeah, well, I really like the tight end Tucker Kraft. He's really come into his own. Is really like the security blanket in that offense, and it has really been impressive. But Love has just kind of continued the ups and downs. I mean, I was on record. They gave him the big contract extension, and at the time, I just felt like it wasn't warranted based on what he had accomplished through that point in his career, and they paid him as if he was, a top 10 quarterback. And I still think he has a long way to go. I mean, he makes a lot of good plays, and he makes a lot of plays that make you scratch your head. So he's not in my circle of trust, so to speak. I know that's been kind of a big saying in sports these days. So yeah, I'm not. And I mean, I had the Packers as the team coming out of the NFC,
Yeah.
and I said like it's mostly the rest of the team, and it's the quarterback that I have questions about. And through the first four games, I don't have any reason to change my stance on where I stand with the Packers.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, right? They dominate Detroit, but it was really a defensive domination. Love, 188 yards, 2 touchdowns. All right, cool, no turnovers. Then against Washington, 292, 2 touchdowns, really good game. He's down against Cleveland, 183. He's got that big pick that kind of changed the game. You know, Not really great. And I know that Cleveland defense is good. And then against that atrocious Dallas defense, he's 337 and 3 touchdowns. So he's just been down to up again. Like, that is the problem with this team, where I can't just fully trust them. And then I just think, for the most part, the defenses look good through 3 games. Maybe they had one bad game, but they have a lot of good players again defensively. Micah is their elite player. Everybody else is kind of along for the ride, and I would just like a little bit more of guys to step up, a little more star power. And now at 2-1-1, we'll see how Green Bay is for the rest of the season. Brian, let's go into our picks here. Week number 5 kicks off. I will say before we start here, a lot of the games this week, as we enter our first bye week with teams on the bye, a lot of games very 50-50 in my opinion. Very hard to call. But we'll start it anyway here. In London, back-to-back games for the Minnesota Vikings overseas. Last week, they were in Dublin, losing to the Steelers. This week, they're over in England. They go against the Browns, who are technically the home team over there in England. Carson Wentz getting his second start, with J.J. McCarthy continuing to be out. Actually, is it his third start? It's his third start he is getting with McCarthy out. And Dillon Gabriel, Joe Flacco getting the benching. Rookie Dillon Gabriel of the Oregon Ducks will be getting the start. Bri, tough game to call here. A lot of, backup quarterbacks and injuries. Who you got over here in London kicking off at 9:30 EST?
Yeah, I'm with you. This is kind of a tough one to call, and you know that I'm high on the Vikings typically. I've already conceded. I was too high on the Vikings at the start of the season. They are not as good as I thought, clearly.
Yeah.
I was too high on J.J. McCarthy, too fast. I mean, he still could be a good player. I'm not giving up on him, but we haven't
Yeah.
seen him now in a little while. But the Vikings are very beat up in this game, not just
Offensive
playing a
line.
backup quarterback. They're missing like 3 starters on the offensive
Yeah.
line. That's a major concern. And you're going against a good, nasty defense. I mean, the Browns come to play every week. I'm taking the Browns to pull this one out
Yeah.
overseas. I think they get a boost, a little spark here with the quarterback change. I think Gabriel will play serviceably. And the Vikings, I just haven't really liked what I've seen, and too beat up right now to have too much confidence in them. So I'm taking Cleveland.
I think it is clear and it's undoubtable at this point that Carson Wentz is the better quarterback right now. Of course, Dillon Gabriel getting his first start, but he's more physically gifted. Gabriel, not a big arm, very short for a quarterback standards. Like, I don't have a lot of faith in him being this all-worldly quarterback. But we just saw this play out last week, where I don't remember if you picked the Vikings, but I certainly did last week. The offensive line gets beat up. It gets even worse during the game against Pittsburgh in Ireland. And Wentz, he has a good statistical game, but he was getting beaten to hell. I very much see that turning out in this game. This Cleveland's defensive line is led by Myles Garrett, is scary. It's incredible. It's ferocious. And I think this game is going to be really ugly. It's going to be really defensive because, Minnesota's defense is pretty solid as well, led by Brian Flores. And normally I don't put my stock behind rookie quarterbacks, but I'm taking the Browns as well. I just think that it could give them a little bit of a jolt. They're not going to ask Gabriel to throw for 300 yards. Hell, if he threw for 180 yards and had no turnovers, I think that's enough to win this game. This game could very much be a 16-13 kind of ugly fest overseas.
Yeah.
And the Vikings, 2 weeks away from home now that they've been in Europe, traveling to 2 different countries. I think that's a lot of an ask from the NFL, and dealing with all the injuries they are. I'm taking the Browns in this one as well. Back in the States, the 1 o'clock games kick off with the Texans and the Ravens. Of course, we wax poetic there about the deficiencies of the Ravens starting Cooper Rush in this game. Lamar out with a hamstring injury amongst a million other Ravens out in this game. And then you go to the other side, Bri, the Houston Texans. They get a win last week, 26-0 against the Titans. But if you watch that game, which most people probably didn't, it was like 6-0 headed into the fourth quarter. The Texans' offense has been arguably the worst offense in the league. They have been atrocious. I don't care what injuries they've had. C.J. Stroud has taken major steps back. This offense has taken so many hits. Who you got in this game of a battle of a bad offense and a really bad defense?
Yeah, I mean, another tough one to call. Another one that I've kind of gone back and forth on, but I don't even know that I have my pick ready, to be honest with you. I'm gonna take Houston.
Yeah.
I just feel like the Ravens right now, I'm not trusting anything that's going on there. The issues on the defensive side of the ball. I don't know what we're getting out of Cooper Rush. And look, it hasn't been pretty with the Texans, and I know it took them a while to get going in the game last week, but I just feel like eventually they have a lot of talent on this team. It's really a matchup of the two probably most disappointing teams right now. Two teams that you thought were shoo-ins to win their divisions, respectively, and they enter this clash at 1-3 apiece. So, one of them is coming out of this week in really dire straits. It just feels like it's more the Ravens season that is completely unraveling here, that now you add Lamar Jackson on the sideline. I think it's going to come down to a field goal at the end. I really do. But I'll say Houston pulls it out.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth in this game dramatically because, like I said at the top, it is so tough to call some of the games this week. I think I'm taking the Texans as well, begrudgingly. I will not be surprised if the Ravens win. Cooper Rush has been serviced as a backup. Derrick Henry has done some of his best games against the Houston Texans, particularly in his time, obviously, when he was in Tennessee. Feels like a real ground and pound game with him, but the Ravens just are beat up, physically, morally, and emotionally. I just feel like the Texans, with that defense, the way that they have playing, I think that they can, all they got to do in their mind, let's contain the run, put 9 in the box, and force Cooper Rush to beat us. And I think that's a formula, again, to make this game super ugly. I wouldn't be shocked if this game is 13-10. I think it's going to be a really disgusting, ugly game, even with how bad the Ravens' defense has been. I can't trust that Houston's offense could actually take advantage of that. But I'm taking the Texans. Yeah. I might regret it. Give me them. The Dolphins play the Panthers in another game. Again, that could go either way. 2 1-3 teams. Of course, the Dolphins coming off of their first win Monday night against your Jets. Tyreek Hill has the catastrophic leg injury. He is out for the season. Who knows if he will be the same player. Dislocated his entire knee, not even just his kneecap, his knee, and then tore his ACL and pretty much all his other knee ligaments. He's up, went through the surgery, and he'll be gone the rest of the year. And then you have the Panthers led by Dave Canales. They had that great game against the Falcons where they didn't do much offensively. But other than that, they've been the Panthers. I mean, they don't look really that great. I'm taking the Dolphins in this one. But regardless of Tyreek Hill not being there, Tua and Mike McDaniels, in their tenure, they beat up on crappy teams. That's just what they do. And even if they are defined right now as a crappy team, I think they are better than the Panthers. I think they go in there and they get a win.
I'm with you here, and I think, Tua, all things considered, has played pretty well. Certainly has played better than Bryce Young. So I don't think too highly of either team. This isn't a game that many eyeballs are going to be glued in on, but I'm taking Miami to pull it out.
The Raiders head to Indianapolis. The Colts coming off of a heartbreaking loss last week against the Rams. Really, you could say that they should have won that game if Adonai Mitchell doesn't have 2 crucial mistakes in that game. One where he wasn't even showboating. I saw a couple people say that. He was not showboating when he fumbled it out of the back of the end zone. It should have been like a 70-something yard touchdown, and it ended up being a touchback. He kind of just lost control of it, almost like he had cooking oil on his hand at the goal line. It made no sense. And then he, of course, Jonathan Taylor has a 53-yard, I think, or something like that, touchdown run at the end, gets called back to a holding. Without that, I think the Colts beat the Rams and win that game. I think they bounce back here at home against the Raiders, where Geno Smith, arguably, Bry, has been the worst quarterback in football. He is a pick machine right now for the Raiders. They had Aston Genty break out finally last week. I don't know if that sustains itself. They were playing the terrible Bears defense. In this one, I'm taking Indianapolis.
Yeah, Genti, 3 touchdowns last week, and he needed that in the worst way. Was starting to draw Trent Richardson comparisons through his
A little
first
bit, a
couple
little bit.
NFL games. Yeah, I'm with you here, and I think it was either last year, maybe the year before. We tried a segment for a few weeks where we called it our lock of the
We
week,
did, yes.
and well, we quickly retired it because our locks of the week proved to be unlocks.
It's true.
So if we were to do the lock of the week, I would pick it here. I
Okay.
think the Colts at home. Been very impressed with this team. They played very consistent football, even in a loss last week against pretty good team there on the road. Played a very competitive game. Daniel Jones has played great football. Jonathan Taylor's been running the heck out of the ball.
Yeah.
I think they're positioned to win this game by double digits. I really believe in the Colts this year based on what we've seen in the early part of the season.
Yeah, that's something we should talk about off camera at some point. Maybe we should think up some more creative segments and start bringing that to the show. I think that'd be a lot of fun here. But yeah, we'll look into that in the future. The Giants head to New Orleans, a battle of 1-3 versus 0-4. Another really tough game. Of course, Jackson Dart started his first game, the rookie quarterback for the Giants, last week. Got a win, shockingly, and an upset over the at this point, even more injured Chargers. And the Saints still searching for that first win, still led by Spencer Rattler. Who you got in this one, Bri?
Yeah, the Saints are 0-4. They've been competitive more often than not, which
Seattle.
Maybe you wouldn't have expected. Outside of Seattle, that's the one outlier. Yeah. But you look, even last week, they go into Buffalo, and you think they're going to get trounced by 30 points. That was they were in that game most of the way, so you got to give them credit here. That said, I'm a little surprised they're favored by 2.5. I know the Giants aren't very good, but I do think the Giants got a big boost last week. Clearly, the shift in energy by making 100%. The quarterback switch was absolutely apparent. That building was rocking last week. Just the opening drive to go down, get that touchdown, the rushing score from Dart. And look, the numbers didn't jump off the page in his debut, but he played winning football. He took care of the ball. He showed off his running ability. This guy looks like he's going to be a good leader. I think, they really might have something here. Now, we know the Giants have a long way to go, and clearly, Malik Neighbors going down is a huge loss for the offense. That said, though, I think they got a little bit of a chip here with Dart now under center, even though it's on the road. I know there's going to be people like the Saints in this game. I think the Giants make it back-to-back games. I think they're really going to start to show some signs here with Dart that they have their guy, and they've got some other playmakers on offense that I think Dart will be able to use effectively enough. I'm taking the Giants.
Yeah, I think this is a really go either way game. That being said, I am one of those people. I am taking New Orleans. I think they've been knocking at the door in 3 of the 4 games this season. You talked about how competitive they were for the most part against Buffalo. They had chances in the first 2 games of the season to win the game against the Cardinals and the 49ers. I think at home, a rookie quarterback in Jackson Dart on the road in New Orleans, which is typically in that Mercedes-Benz Dome or whatever it's called at this point. It's loud. That's a tough environment to go in. You're down your number 1 receiver, of course, because Neighbors tears his ACL. He's out for the year. That really, really sucks for them. I like that they have some energy with Dart and Cam Scatterboo. I just don't know how much I could trust the Giants. Not that being said, I'm not trusting the Saints so much, but I think they have been there. I don't think they're going 0-17 this season, and I think they get their first win here at home. The Cowboys head to the Jets, Bri, the 1-2-1 Cowboys and the 0-4 Jets. And look, I'll just say the Cowboys are winning this game. The Jets have shown me 0 things that they could win a football game up to this point. I think they will win one. The same thing as I just said for the Saints at some point. There's some things, we're trying to ride out the Aaron Glenn thing, but they're consistently making the same mistakes every week. Penalties. The defense, which he's supposed to be, the leader of that, has looked even worse than last year. And offensively, outside of really Garrett Wilson, you don't really have anyone. I and Braylon Allen now out for 8 to 12 weeks. He also fumbled on the 1 yard line last week. Give me the Cowboys in that offense.
Yeah, I mean, look, I certainly can't fault you for your pick, and you know as well as anyone that I'm very fair when it comes to the Jets, and frankly, I don't pick them to win very often, and you can't like much about
Don't
the
do it.
start of their season. They're 0-4 for a reason. Not only are they bad, they're also kind of boring. Like it
Oh,
just kind of
so
feels like we're
boring.
not going to be talking about them much through the rest of the season because they just feel sort of irrelevant. But with all that said, I'm taking them to win this game.
Here
I
he
They're
is.
gonna get a win at some point, like you said. Why not against the defense that we've been thrashing, rightfully so,
It's
because they
true.
have been so bad. We saw the Jets, when they played the Steelers and their leaky defense in week one, scored 30 plus points. I think this is a game where they clearly are going to be able to move the ball. Everybody's able to move the ball
Yeah.
against the Cowboys. And the Jets have moved it well more often than not this year. Fields back in the lineup has been a little up and down, but I think it's just more about how bad the Cowboy defense is that the Jets are going to be able to win this game with their offense. They're not going to win games with their defense, and
Yeah.
not against Dallas, who has a very good offense and has Dak Prescott playing at the top of his game right now. But I just got a feeling, and I'm probably going to come on here next week and regret the pick because that's what the Jets do. They disappoint their fans on a weekly basis. I just sort of had this hunch that they're going to get it done this week, get off the schneid, and get a win.
No, I think it's possible. I'm not saying the Cowboys could be in that classic trap game, riding high, emotional game. Micah's return, they score 40 points at home. I could absolutely, there's still going to be no CeeDee Lamb. I could see the drop off. Like, I definitely can see the possibilities for that. Just right now, I don't know how much, even against this putrid Cowboys defense, do I trust the Jets offense. I'm sorry. Like, I just don't know if I do. Now they're down another offensive weapon in Allen. We'll see. I mean, I feel like this game could go either way as well, but I'm trusting Dak more than Justin Fields. The final 1 o'clock game is the Broncos head to the Eagles. The Broncos, a thorough domination of the just lifeless Bengals at this point on Monday night. But it's not like they've looked like world beaters. And the Eagles, you want to talk about not looking like world beaters, they deserve all the credit in the world. They deserve it. They're 4-0. They're champions. But if you look at their offensive ranks, Bry, they're really bad. And not trying to pick on a team that's 4-0 and beat my team, of course. Jalen Hurts last week against the Bucs, which they ended up winning. They had the block punt. They thwarted Baker's late drive. You know how many passing yards Jalen Hurts had in the second half of last week, Bry?
Not many.
0. 0 yards. He went
Zero.
over. Have you ever heard that before? 0 for 8 for 0 yards
No.
for a team that scored 31 points and is 4-0. I mean, there's just something. I've been saying it since the end of last year, and I'll give them all the credit in the world that they're winners. They keep finding ways to win. But this offense in particular, Bry, Barkley has been half of what he was, even literally statistically, than he was last year. And we know he had an all-world year last year. Jalen Hurts, he has one good half, one really questionable bad half. They struggle to get Devontae and AJ going. They really only got them going in that second half of the Rams game. You have AJ Brown, after last week, tweeting out some kind of Bible verse that seems to be talking about his struggles and, maybe he's staying quiet, but he's frustrated. And then he, of course, does the right thing of denouncing that. Oh, it wasn't about the offense and it was nothing about football. And I shouldn't have done that because it brought attention. BS. That's exactly what it was. Just like you reading the book on the sidelines last year, wasn't you catching up on your favorite authors? It was literally you silently, not so silently voicing your frustrations. That is bubbling. And I feel like if they don't get some of this under control with new offensive coordinator Kevin Petula, I believe his name, or Petula, I believe Petula it is, there's going to be problems here. They're not going to go 17-0. That being said, in this game, they'll beat the Broncos. I think it'll be more of an ugly game than you think, but I haven't loved what I've seen out of Denver. Give me Philly.
Yeah, I think this is probably the most intriguing of the 1 o'clock slate of games here.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot going on the Eagles side of things. The AJ Brown thing is definitely curious. I
Weird.
mean, there's clearly been a lot of unhappiness going on, really for a lot of his Eagles tenure. You wonder, if there were some kind of character issues that the Titans saw when they had him, and that led them to trading him. And I mean, when he's been good, he's been one of the best in the league with the Eagles. But he's also just completely vanished from this offense on far too many occasions. So it's kind of curious with all the talent they have, and they have an extremely talented offense, but from the line to the receivers to the running back, everyone, they have all the pieces in place. So you figure it's a matter of time before it kind of all clicks again. And that said, with all these issues, they're still unbeaten. So,
Yeah.
they don't have really a lot to quiver about. I think they're going to win this game again on their home field. Denver has been kind of spotty. We know they were good last week, but, we need to see more from them. I'm taking Philly at home
Yeah,
here.
and I do think AJ Brown, he deserves to voice, maybe not in the way he does, but he deserves at least to feel the frustration because outside of his like first year in Philly, it's been a rough time being a football player and getting your stats and being a dominant player. That's hard. And you get 9 targets last week and you have 7 yards. Most of the balls you get are uncatchable. I can understand how frustrating that is. The 405 games kickoff ride with the Titans going to the Cardinals. Another game that's, just who cares. I'm taking the Cardinals. I think they bounce back. They've lost 2 in a row, and the Titans are, as I've said the last couple of weeks, maybe the worst coach team in the league. And as Cam Ward, the rookie quarterback, said last week at the podium, I'm going to keep it a buck. We ass right now. They are. I'm taking the Cardinals.
Well, listen, their own starting quarterback says they stink. I don't know what any outsider is supposed to think otherwise. I mean, they're pretty brutal right now. Yeah, there's not really much more to add here. I think if Arizona doesn't win the game by 10 points,
Yeah,
it says a lot about the Cardinals really not being all that good because they should
for
win
sure.
convincingly.
The other 405 game is the Bucks headed to the Seahawks. I think this is going to be a great one. Sneakily, all of a sudden, in the last few years, the Seahawks have not, as I said last week, had a good home field advantage. They're like 4-8 in their last 12 home games. Playing there, Sam Darnold against Baker Mayfield, 2 quarterbacks that have kind of been these quote-unquote reclamation projects who have found second life at different stops than the original team that has drafted them. Who do you got in this one as the Bucks head to Seattle?
Yeah, another kind of close call here, but I liked what I've seen out of both teams. Bucks coming out their first loss last week at home against Philly, but Seattle has really impressed me.
Yeah,
You were on this team before the season. I honestly, you were like going on about them. I was thinking you were a little crazy, to be honest with you.
it's
But the
fair.
way it's played out, they've been pretty impressive. Darnold's played well. That defense has played really well. JSN has come into his own, looks like legitimate number one receiver. So I think, even though the home field advantage hasn't been what we've come to expect with the 12s and the whole thing out there in Seattle, I think they get it done here at home. The Bucks are starting to get a little healthier, getting Godwin back into the mix on the offensive side,
It's
still
great to see.
down Mike Evans. Very competitive game here, but I'm going Seattle.
Yeah, I'm going Seattle as well. I think this is going to be a great game. I would not be shocked if the Bucks win this one, but I do think at some point they're going to win at home again. I just think no Bucky Irving on Tampa Bay's side really cuts a huge element out of that offense. And then, of course, as you said, no Mike Evans. They're still kind of beat up / just getting guys back on the offensive line like Tristan Wirfs. I think that's going to take a little bit more time to gel and get healthier. This Bucks team is going to be scary as the season goes on, but right now I think they're going to slip for the second week in a row. Seattle, that defense, what they can do with Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker, JSN, Cooper Kupp. I like what they have there, and Sam Darnold. Give me Seattle. The 425 games kick off with the Lions at the Bengals, which before the season, what a game this would have been. Probably an offensive explosion. Now, as the Bengals, who are cheap and also very stubborn, keep sticking with Jake Browning, who, let's be real, has not been anywhere close to the same player he was 2 years ago when he took over for Joe Burrow. He has been downright atrocious. And all you need to know, Bry, is they're down big on Monday night in Denver. It's about 6 or 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter. It's fourth down. I think it was like 4th and 6 or something like that, and they punt the ball. They didn't even try to go for it. They were out of sync all night long. There's no way in my right mind I could pick the Bengals right now. It's going to be Lions all day long. Give me them.
Yeah, and I think Jamar Chase's frustration is starting to grow
Yep.
already. It feels like a long time ago that this team was sitting at 2-0, and you thought,
Yep.
oh, maybe finally this is going to be the year for Cincinnati because it's always about getting off to slow starts. Well, they turn that around, and then they lose Joe Burrow, and it just felt like the season went down the drain, and they're just playing very uninspired
Yeah.
football. I mean, it just has not been competitive, and now you got Detroit, and they're red hot. Their offense is humming. I don't see any way this game is close. Detroit is the pick.
And you also want to talk about another coach on the hot seat, Zach Taylor, absolutely on the hot seat. That defense actually for the Bengals has not even played that poorly, even though it was much maligned in the offseason. Just sucks, man. Like the NFL is cruel like that, right? They get off to a hot start that they normally never do. If you have Joe Burrow healthy, the AFC North, it feels like, the Steelers are not a real team, in my opinion. The Ravens are so down. The AFC is wide open, and he's probably out for the year. Like that, it's just, NFL could be cruel sometimes, and it's tough, man. The other 425 game is the Commanders at the Chargers. The Chargers right now are banged up, Bry, all over the place. That's how they went into MetLife and lost to a rookie quarterback in his first start. Major offensive line issues here. Commanders getting Jaden Daniels back. They will have no Terry McLaurin in this game. Who you got in this one?
Another kind of close pick. I mean, as you
Yeah,
set the scene here before we started, a lot of kind of pick 'em sort of games here.
absolutely.
There's a lot of weeks where I feel like we go in and there's a lot of clear-cut winners. This is not the week for that. This is not going to be a good week for the survivor pool, folks.
No.
I'm going to take the Chargers. I think this is going to be a very close game, and I know the offensive line's very beat up. Alt, the left tackle, that's a big
He's out.
loss for Herbert and his blind side. And you saw how the Giants' defense was able to harass Herbert for much of that game last week. Went a long way in getting the Giants the win. But I feel like, Harbaugh will make the right adjustments here. They're back home. Herbert's played very well this year, last week notwithstanding. I'm still kind of wishy-washy on Washington. We haven't seen Jaden Daniels now in the last couple of games. Maybe he's a little bit rusty or he'll be without his top target at wide receiver. So I think the Chargers, I think in a close game, I think they're the better team top to bottom, even with some of the issues they have with injuries.
Yeah, I'm taking the Chargers as well. I think it is a major issue with, Slater before the year now, all out for probably about close to a month with a high ankle sprain. That's a major concern. But you know what? Even though I think the Commanders are a better team than the Giants, you know what the Giants have that allowed them to exploit the Chargers last week? A
The
great
pass
defensive
rush.
line, a pass rush. And I think the Commanders just do not scare you in that way. There is no one that you can consistently say is going to be able to take advantage. I trust in Jim Harbaugh. I trust in Justin Herbert that they can figure out a way to win this game. Mario Hampton, Keenan Allen, Quinston Johnson, Lad McConkey. This is going to be an ugly, grinded out, exactly what Jim Harbaugh wants kind of game. And right now, Jane Daniels, I do have a lot of faith in him. But you're coming off a knee sprain. You missed 2 games. You are going to be rusty. You are without your top receiver, and you're on the road. I just feel like the Chargers want to muck this one up, and they're going to win this one. The Sunday night game, Bri. The Patriots going towards Buffalo, going up to Buffalo, I should say. Or actually, no, for them, it'd be down to Buffalo. They're going to Highmark Stadium. They're going to Buffalo. And I think this game is getting a little bit of too much buzz, in my opinion. I think that all of a sudden there's this like weird thing with the media this last week where they are crowning Drake May. He may be an MVP candidate, and I think the Patriots are going to go up to Buffalo and they're gonna knock them off. I'm not taking them. I'm picking the Buffalo Bills. I know this defense has not looked great. Drake May deserves credit. He's played pretty well so far this season. But, I mean, come on. We're playing the Panthers last week. Isn't this the same team 2 weeks ago that had 5 turnovers against what I don't even regard as a great Steelers defense? Like, to me, I think we need to put this in context. I'm not going to say this is going to be a blowout because the Bills didn't blow out the Saints last week, but I'm not expecting the Patriots to be overwhelmingly being able to beat the Bills. Give me the Bills.
Yeah, I'm with you here. I people I think are getting a little too high on the Patriots off one game and making a big deal out of beating the
The
Panthers is
Panthers.
really a bit much. And I mean I'm higher I think on Drake May than you are,
Yeah.
and I do think we're going to see kind of a breakout season from him as the year goes along. But you talk about this is the kind of game where, the expression is, are you ready for prime time? And
Absolutely.
I don't think Drake May and the Patriots are quite ready for this assignment yet. In that environment, with all the Bills bring to the table, I think the pieces in place here are for Buffalo to win by, I think, 10 points or more.
To your point, I think by and far in his short NFL career, this is the biggest game of his life is going to be on Sunday night. The final game of Week 5, Bry, is the Monday night game. Chiefs heading to the Jags. And the Jags, look, they're 3-1. Offensively, if you've not been watching them or watching them as a team, I don't blame you. They've been kind of boring. Their offense has been subpar with the number one overall pick a few years ago, all of that stuff. This defense, Bry, has looked good. That defensive line is scary. They're leading the league in turnovers. They have harassed teams. And I think is going to be a very interesting matchup of a Jags, defense against Kansas City's offense. Who you got in this one on Monday night?
Yeah, I mean, I generally have more faith in the Chiefs organization than I do the
The truth.
Jacksonville Jaguars. So I'm taking the Chiefs here. I think the win last week got them moving in the right direction. I think they gained a lot of confidence with that kind of a game. And Jacksonville, like you said, has played well defensively, but you put them in a spot where they're the standalone game. They typically don't stand up in these kind of spots. So I'm taking the Chiefs.
I think also in his career too, he's like Mahomes is like 3-1 or 4-1 against Lawrence, including that playoff game in the divisional round they played a few years ago. I'm taking the Chiefs as well. I think the 37 points you see last week, they might plummet to about 20 points, but I just do not see this Jacksonville offense really. They haven't impressed me at all this season, and I think Brian Thomas, they can't get Travis Hunter going. It's just been a really weird situation there that they've had in Jacksonville and even the offensive coaching staff. I never loved the hire there as well. So I just think it's going to be a good game, but a lot more lower scoring than you think. And I think the Chiefs they have a winning culture. They know how to do it, and they're going to pull this one out. The teams, of course, also on the bye here for week number 5, as I like to say every time there is a bye. The Steelers, the Packers, the Falcons, and the Bears. They'll be back next week. We'll possibly talk about those teams next week. But guys, that wraps up our episode here of First and 10. We recapped some week 4, dumped a little bit into week 5. I had a therapy session with the Rams, and we did some picks. I hope you've all enjoyed. If you listen up to this point, we greatly appreciate you. Thank you so much for the support. These have been getting, for us, a pretty good amount of views every episode, and we really appreciate that. I've commented back a few times to people. We appreciate the comments. It really drives engagement, helps the videos get out more and more, and we really do appreciate that. Brian, any final thoughts before we get out of here tonight?
Yeah, well, thank you very much to our viewers. It's nice that we're developing a little bit of a following here now in our sixth season doing the show. You and I got a little bit of our frustrations out before we came on the baseball front, so we don't need to rehash
Yeah.
any of that. But say a lot. We had a lot to say about the Mets not being in the playoffs. But my final thing here before we get out of here was this big alarming story that broke earlier today
Yeah.
involving Mark Sanchez, of course, the
Very
former
weird.
quarterback who's now one of the analysts. And yeah, very weird because at first, you hear that he was stabbed and you thought that it was just sort of like a random
Right, and
attack.
you're like, oh my
But
God.
then you come
Yeah.
to Right. And then you come to find out that Sanchez is being
He
arrested
was
as
the
part of
aggressor.
this whole thing. That he was the aggressor. Obviously, a lot of details have to come out and
Right.
investigation and all of that. But a very scary situation and one that we're going to have to learn more about. But was certainly alarming to get that notification earlier
Yeah.
today. And a guy who's we see on TV, of course, we know his career with the Jets and as a quarterback. in the league. I think he's a pretty good analyst,
I
actually.
do too.
I enjoy
Yeah,
watching him, and now you'd have to consider that maybe his job could be in jeopardy
for
based
sure,
on
for sure.
what comes out in the aftermath of this. So I thought that was notable to bring up here at our conclusion.
Yeah, absolutely. I like him as an analyst. Unfortunate to hear, of course, I had the same reaction as most people did. You saw everybody tweeting out, you have that concern. Oh my God, wow, random act of violence. This world's crazy. And then to learn, details are fluid and, we're not trying to, get ourselves in trouble here. But the details we know right now, he was arrested at the hospital where he is currently recovering. He's in stable condition. He was the aggressor. It seems to be an issue from reports that he kind of went after a DoorDash driver who was double parked and he was public intoxicated, Sanchez was, and he kind of charged him and kept after him and also hit him. And then he was also pepper sprayed. And then eventually he was, of course, stabbed. There's not much more details about that, but for me, that's enough to say we'll probably never see him as an analyst again. I think that is the end of his tenure, at least for the foreseeable future. Unfortunate situation. People have to keep their emotions in check, especially when there is drugs and alcohol related. And yeah, that's all I'll say about that right now. It's not a great situation for everyone, for the person that was attacked, the victim, for Sanchez and what he just did for his own life and career. I will say, on a different type of note, but just as scary. And speaking of analysts and people that are very big into the sports media, I don't know if you saw this, Bri, but Robert Griffin III, he's lucky to be alive this past week and got in a horrific car accident with him and his family. Everybody seems to be okay, but he posted the pictures online. His car was massively totaled. That could have been way worse. So a lot of weird things going on with analysts and people surrounding kind of the football sphere, but he said him and his family seemed to be all right. It seems like everybody who didn't have any serious injuries that was involved in the accident, at least at this point, as being reported. But I felt like that was something to say. And another on a somber note, we learned in the last day or so, former Raven, I believe he was a Colt as well, older brother of UFC fighter John Jones, Arthur Jones, sadly and suddenly passes away at 39. I haven't seen anything of any details of how his passing happened, and I'm not here to comment on any of that stuff, but give my heartfelt condolences out to the Jones family, his whole family, and friends and all of that. So just been a lot of a whirlwind going on here in the football world.
Yeah, I was so unfortunate that we had to end on a somber note.
I
I
know.
didn't even see the Robert Griffin III story, but
Yeah.
it's, I guess, just a relief that he made out okay despite a pretty serious accident. So sorry we had to end on a
Yeah, we're
sad
sorry about
note,
that.
but those were some things breaking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes the world is, that's the breaking news, and sometimes the way it goes. I think we had a real fun show up to this point, so we're sorry we did end it on that somber stuff. But yeah, once again, give our condolences out to the Jones family, and honestly, all the stories we talked about as well, guys. Hopefully, we'll have a better, more outlooking, positive stories to talk about next week, and hopefully, we'll have some great games to talk about. As always, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share with your friends if you be so kind. And until next week of First and 10, thank you for watching.